I like to say that I go kind of like a mile deep with the founders versus a mile wide and inch deep with them, right? Back then, I was solely interested in generating enough money to buy Air Jordans. He said the difference between 1 and 0 is infinite. People do business with people they trust and like, and it takes time to earn that trust. Both ways. I went from like a 60% no rejection to like a 70% yes and getting paid. I was just all over the place, trying to make it a mission to grow this thing.
Welcome to The Diligent Observer, where we help angel investors see what most miss. I'm your host, Andrew, and every week we explore what works, what doesn't, and why through conversations with experienced startup investors and operators. My guest today is Ichan Stall, co-chairman of the North Texas Angel Network, who has developed a fascinating mile deep versus mile wide methodology for assessing startup founders. In this episode, Ichan reveals his specific tactics for testing founder coachability and vulnerability during due diligence, explains how he balances thorough evaluation with speed of decision-making, and shares in detail how a teenage lawn mowing business on a military base taught him the competitive advantages that he now looks for when evaluating entrepreneurs. I hope you enjoy learning from Ichan as much as I did. Ichan, thank you for being with me today.
Yeah. Good morning. Thank you. Great to be here. I really appreciate it.
Well, we are live from the Dallas-Fort Worth Startup Week. This is the 10th annual DFW Startup Week. This is my second to attend, and I'm just so thrilled to be here today with you. You have made it very clear to me over the last couple of days getting to know you that this community is just fantastic. There's so much activity, so much energy, and you are kind of at the center of it. So, Ichan, my first question for you is, what are you excited about right now?
I think, a lot of people will say AI or things like that. I'm more interested about building this community up and the ecosystem. So I'm excited about meeting new and familiar faces and things like that, but really just continuing to help build this community up. We're a fairly large city, and I think we haven't had really the success yet that you see other ecosystems across the country have achieved for the size of a city that we are. And, but I'm really encouraged because this is my fourth startup week. I feel like they've doubled each year. So it just gives me a lot of confidence that we're doing the right things. We're building up this ecosystem, getting these founders funded or if that's what they're looking for, or resources, and helping them however which way we can to make sure that they thrive and succeed.
Well, I've certainly seen and heard how you've participated in some of that activity. I'd love to, maybe as a starting point, hear more about your story and how you entered into the DFW ecosystem in particular. I know you came from Silicon Valley and here you are. So maybe tell me a little bit more about the story.
Yeah. So I'll go back to my days when I was a young teenager, actually.
Going all the way back.
Yeah. So that was, so I grew up in a military environment, living overseas all my entire life. My dad was in the Army. It was from Georgia. He left college or left high school, go to college, never returned back to where he grew up, joined the military, and then was off overseas, met my mom in Japan. I'm half Japanese. And I was pretty much born and raised in Japan on a military base. And my dad really instilled a great work ethic. And he was always successful in what he did. He got a number of awards in the military. And ultimately, I think that kind of just through osmosis, and he always said, look, son, work hard, work smart, think out of the box. And so when I was a young teenager, I trying to make some money. I took on a paper route like anyone else in the military base. And it's a little more confined because you're on a military base, so you can't leave the base when you're a young kid. And, and at the age of 13 or 14, I'm riding my bike around or whatever it might be. I kind of ceased the paper route to take on landscaping. And let me just tell you kind of a little bit about that. So, and just kind of give you a, context here. On a military base, you don't travel with heavy equipment. So most military installations that I was on, you didn't even travel with a car. You bought the car there, especially because if you go to another base, that car may not be legal because you might drive on the other side of the road. Kind of same thing with heavy furniture or heavy, landscaping equipment. You didn't really travel with a lawnmower or a weed whacker. So what we did on the military base is you had to go to the local fire station and rent the lawnmower. Okay.
You had to rent the lawnmower from the fire station.
That's right. I know it's strange, but I tell you, and I'll tell you, as you get to understand the story here, I got into mowing yards on the military base. Now you can think of the military as high fade cuts, or low, short hair. Same thing with the grass. Grass needs to be short.
That's right.
Otherwise, the military police or someone from the base who's overseeing kind of the local community will come and give you a note and say, you need to have this yard mowed the next 3 to 5 days, right? Because it's looking kind of rough.
You're telling me the military bases have HOAs too?
In a lot of ways, yes.
That's wild.
No penalties, though, other than just kind of a warning saying, get it done, get it mowed. So I decided, hey, I think there's a business here. And I wasn't the first one to do this. I saw other people mowing yards. So you go to the fire station in the morning. And so in the summertime, this is my summer job. I go to the fire station, rent the lawnmower. You have a government issued ID and you give them the ID, and then they issue the lawnmower. These were gas powered, very heavy lawnmowers. Now I'm much older than you. So this is back in the 80s and 90s. Okay. And you then go and rent the lawnmower and you literally push it. You got to make sure it's got gas. They usually fill it up in the morning for you. But every day you go there at, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning to rent it, and you go off and you start walking around the neighborhood mowing yards. And that was kind of really, okay, I'm starting a business like this in a lot of ways. I didn't know what I was really doing, but I knew I was making some money. And I had friends that I was growing up with who were also doing this with me, but they were doing their own thing, own yards. And at the end of the day, we'd get together, come back and meet at the Domino's, local Domino's or Burger King or Pizza Hut, and we'd kind of pull our money out of a pocket and say, who made the most money? Kind of bragging rights. Now, back then, I was solely interested in generating enough money to buy Air Jordans. I wanted those, those nice kicks, right? So I look at it and I look at everyone else, and mind you, in my opinion, I had a really strong work ethic. Again, a lot of from my father. Even my brother attempted to do this, and he didn't have that work ethic. I never even told him this, but in my opinion, he was lazy. But my friends who I knew really well, they didn't have that work ethic that I had. Some of them did, but not as much. And yet at the end of the day, every day we just compare who made the most money. And I made usually more than anyone else, but not that much. I actually started getting pissed. I'm sweating, I'm working hard, and I'm figuring out that I'm not making that much more money, and I should be making more money than them. So I started thinking, how do I make improvements? I went to my pops, and my pops said, son, think out of the box, think efficiency, think about what you can do different to improve even the smallest things. And I know you weren't here. I don't think you were here for the Shazam Chris Barton, but he said something really powerful. He said the difference between 1 and 0 is infinite. And what I mean by that is just one little small detail could be a really sizable or infinite gap between you and your competition. He gave an example of Dropbox, where Dropbox was competing against other kind of tools that were uploading documents in the cloud. And the other competitors, and Chris Barton had worked at Dropbox, this is why he was telling the story. He said, our competitors were touting just one click, upload to the cloud or download to my local desktop. Dropbox said, you just drag it and it's already in the cloud. Not even one click. That one click was the infinite difference that allowed them to succeed and the others fall to the wayside like the dodo bird, right? Really, they went extinct and Dropbox continued on. From 1 to 0, one click to no clicks. Very, very powerful. Now, obviously I didn't know him back then, but that mindset for me was, how do I improve? So what did I do? Remember I told you this is gas-powered lawnmower. I pushed it around everywhere. I had to go rent it from a local fire station. I started to hold the lawnmower with my bicycle with a bungee cord. Okay. So I could go faster.
What?
Yes. Because now I'm moving at a much accelerated path than everyone else is pushing it. I would be the first one to the fire station, so no one else saw me go do this because I was there before everyone else, right? Early bird gets the worm. First time when it was open, I was there, pronto, ready to rent the lawnmower. The other thing that I did, and I mentioned again, gas powered. What would you surmise from that? Fuel efficiency. I carried a notepad with me, took notes, literally like a spreadsheet back then. There was about 20 or 25 lawnmowers they had that they would have available for you, lined up in groups of five rows of five rows of five. And they were all numbered 1 through like 25 on the outside. I started to study the lawnmowers and the fuel efficiency of them. Also, which ones from a maintenance standpoint broke down a lot. Because when they break down, you got to take it back to the fire station and they would fix it. Or if it's burning a lot of fuel, more so than others, it's a problem. The more time I'm away from mowing the yards, the less money I'm making. So what I do over the course of like a few weeks, I start to analyze each and every lawnmower.
I would love to have seen this. I mean, I just imagine 14-year-old Ichan pulling lawnmowers around this military base on his bike. I mean, how many times did you get people stopping, asking you, what the heck are you doing?
Right. But
what's happening?
But people started copying me when they found out I was doing that. So that was a validation that I'm doing something right. Even back then, again, I didn't really know I was doing other than just my dad said, hey, I won't tell your brother, but think out of the box, think efficiency. The other thing that I did was that as I got older and I had either a friend help me, or when I had my license, I would put the lawnmower in the back of the trunk. Now I'm going even super duper fast, right? But there's a couple other things. So first year happens, it's done. I'm making some money. We all compare, every day we compare. I'm making more money for sure now, but still not to my satisfaction. Still pissed off. So during the next year, because you stop during the summertime, our fall break, you go back to school in high school. So now fast forward a year, I've been thinking about all the things I could do on top of that, right? Now I know the fuel efficiency. I had marked down which ones were the most fuel efficient. So the next year when I come back, I have like a little Sharpie. Underneath the lawnmower, I marked off the top 7 lawnmowers that were the best operating lawnmowers, okay? Remember, I'm there before anyone else, so I can get the pick of the litter. I always typically had number 1 and number 2. Number 7 was the worst of the best. All the others were not operational very well. Some broke down a lot more. Tires didn't work, wibbly wobbly. You hold the handle to mow it, it wouldn't work, or you try to pull it and it won't start very well. All that stuff came into play. And I ranked it 1 through 7. Always usually getting number 1 or 2. Remember I told you they lined them up. So every morning I got there, I would find out where number 1 is, and I would take this other 6, move them to the back of the line. I would move everything up. So when everyone walked up, they were getting all the lousy lawnmowers. And most times they never went to the back row where all the best lawnmowers were at. So now what I don't know, but I understand is I now have a competitive advantage by thinking out of the box, giving people a disadvantage, right? Because now they're operating off of junk, fuel inefficient lawnmowers that have a lot of maintenance issues.
You got a trade secret right there.
Right. Another thing, and I'll wrap this up here on this story, but I came with the idea to build loyalty. I built a little piece of paper and wrote yard of the month. I laminated it, put basically some chopsticks or whatever, stuck it in the ground. Made people proud to have that display in their yard. What did? They went off and shared it with other people in their neighborhood. Ichan mows my yard, he should mow your yard. Or it was a referral system, building up loyalty. And remember, in the military, on the military base, they want that yard looking tidy and clean, just like, military operates, right? So now all of a sudden they see this in the yard, right? And I would do like powered by Ichan, something like that, and it's kind of a pun on things, right? Powered lawnmower. The other thing that I did to kind of the last thing I really did was I would always go and ask people to mow the yard. Oftentimes more so than not, it was the wife, the spouse who was home, and the husband was usually working. Not all the time, but more times than not. And then when I knock on the door and ask, can I mow your yard? Your yard's looking really tall, the grass looking tall. She would say, no, my husband will do it, or my son or daughter may do it later on. And I'd get a lot of no's, a lot of rejections, right? And so it's a numbers game. Like sales, you just hit more and more yards. Ultimately, people say yes, things like that. I got the idea thinking after about halfway through that second season, I'm going to stop asking. I'm a 15-year-old kid. I'm going to try and play the emotional, feel sorry kind of game side, and I'm just going to mow the yard. And so this whole thing about asking for permission versus forgiveness, again, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know that term, but that's what I ended up doing. I ended up mowing the yards and then knocking on the door and saying, excuse me, ma'am, I just mowed your yard. Just want to let you know it was looking really tall. And sometimes she'll say, oh, you should have never done that. My husband could have done that, but thank you.
Mm.
I never would ask for any money. And they would just say, how much can I give you? I said, oh, I usually charge $5. And they were like, here you go. I went from like a 60% no rejection to like a 70% yes and getting paid. You're talking about a significant difference now in my sales.
Which I'm sure more than accounted for the yards that you mowed, and they said, oh, thanks.
Right.
And never handed you cash.
Right. That's right. You get something that would not pay you. Here's the other thing though. They would say, oh, thank you for doing this. Also, can you come back in 2 weeks? And I'm going to refer you to somebody else. So again, referral, loyalty, right? Building up loyalty, trust, right?
Yeah.
The last thing I did was I decided to expand my business and start pruning the yards. So it wasn't just cutting the grass. It was like doing the bushes and stuff like that. So kind of a little feature functionality that would add a little bit. Hey, I'll do the yard and prune your yards or whatever it might be for an extra $2.
And this was the start of Ichan's landscaping empire.
I don't know about an empire, but I started reading books on how to get rich quick. I started just understanding, like, I like the idea of making money in a way, but I realized hard work, working smart would maybe pay off one day. And I knew that was kind of when had that entrepreneurial bug born. I also realized further down the road that I still need to go in the corporate world and get some experience. But that really is what gave me the insight and the thought. And also it made me be very analytical, which is why I studied statistics for a hot minute in college. But ultimately, I love sales. I love meeting people and networking, as you probably have ascertained now and surmised from just being here. Just loved working with people and always felt I can help. And that was the mentality I always had, helping others.
So I'd love to explore more on how you do that. I mean, it's clear that you've got a significant depth of relationship. You hustle even in your relationship building. But one of the topics that angel investors are always thinking about is, how do I like suss out whether or not this person or this set of people can cut it? Do they have the grit? Do they have the hustle? Will they be able to pull through in the long haul? That's a question. And there's a million ways to suss that out.
Yeah.
But I'd love to hear more about how you do that today in your strategy. Like, tell us a little bit more about what.
Yeah, that's a good question, Andrew. Experience teaches you a lot, right? I've been angel investing for almost 10 years, but I've been, in a lot of ways, psychologically studying people for a long time. As I told you, I grew up in the military. I've been to 70 plus countries in my life. That has given me a huge, unique ability to connect in a very meaningful way. You could tell me, hey, I lived here, and there's a good chance I could understand and connect with you about something where you're from or something you've done. I've also owned a lot of different things. I've tried a lot of different things also. Being well-traveled has allowed me to be also well-cultured. And whether you're from Singapore or from France or from South America, there's a good chance that I can relate and share something about you. And I feel like if you're genuine and authentic, people can smell the BS.
Yeah.
They can pick up on that quickly. So being authentic, being genuine, but also as a kid, I was always very curious. And now you've heard people say startup curiosity, maybe, or that's a kind of term sometimes we use. I grew up that way. My brother used to say, shut the F up, Ichan. Why are you asking all these damn questions? Pops doesn't want to hear all that. And my dad was like, ask away, son. Why is this color? Why is that doing this? Why? How, and I was a kid breaking stuff down and saying, how did this thing work? Always asking questions. So when it comes to angel investing, I'm asking in kind of little way, subtly testing out the founder and the team that he or she has assembled. But ultimately, your gut tells you a little bit about the behavior they have, right? Because ultimately, the team dynamic that you as a startup have really can be a make or break for your startup, right? How do you communicate as a team? Do you communicate cohesively? Are you guys all in alignment, marching to the same goal? Probably one of the most important is, how do you deal when you have a major issue or conflict or a major problem that could potentially be fatal? How do you stand up and fight like badgers in a corner, or do you run for the hills with a tail between your legs? That really is a telltale sign, right? You heard the tenacity and grit, not giving up. And I mentioned, do you have startup curiosity? Do you ask questions and try and learn, right? I've met founders who don't think, who believe they know everything because they've been in this industry for a long time. I've been doing this for a long time. I'm still learning. There's no way that they, have learned everything. So it's really about just kind of almost in a way dissecting and slicing and dicing up that individual and just really getting to understand them. Nothing against the startup. Certainly that comes into play, but I really look deep into the founders and understand, their kind of psyche and do a little test with them and just see what kind of questions, how they answer and behave and what teams they've assembled more than probably anything else.
So I want to get a little more tactical on this because I think this is an area that is really difficult for a lot of angels because it's the one that in theory takes the most time, right? I have to sit down, I'm hearing the pitch and I see the presentation, they're standing up front, answering questions, and every founder is gritty and has has what it takes from the stage. But I think what separates great investors from those that are less great is the capacity in many ways to double click and to kind of get a layer deeper or two or three to see the guts of how a founder actually operates. Because no one's coming to you and saying, here's the time when I totally failed, or here's how I'm, not cut out for this. Like, that's not the story that gets told. So like, what are some of the tactics or strategies that you found successful that would be helpful?
Yeah. So I like to say that I go kind of like a mile deep with the founders versus a mile wide and inch deep with them. Right. And I say that in the sense that I shared the story earlier about me working as in landscaping business. Right. I've always felt like I go that extra mile, right? Because, and I use the Chris Barton analogy here as well, the 1 to 0. Small little additional effort can be an infinite wide gap that separates you from your competition, makes you unique, or maybe gives you that IP or defensibility that, us as investors really are looking for. So I expect the founders, or I hope that they'll go that extra mile, do anything and everything. You're right. Most founders will tell you they got tenacity, grit, don't give up, persistent, right? I get that. But there's a level of how further will they go, right? Bill Chen, the CEO of the Debt Network, he always says, look, Ichan, you're the last one here and you're the first one in the morning here. I take great pride in putting the hard work. I spent a lot of time in San Francisco, and although I wasn't a fan of the San Francisco 49ers, and using another sports analogy here, but Jerry Rice was a gentleman that I really respect as a wide receiver. He always said, look, I'm not the fastest, I'm not the strongest, I'm not the tallest, but no one's going to outwork me. And I will run these routes to perfection. And he's now arguably, if not the best wide receiver. Right? And you say about Michael Jordan, right? He got cut from his high school basketball team. And it just motivated him to be better and stronger and be a better team player and get other people motivated. And did he as a leader, or do they as a leader, Jerry or Neil, do they make others better? Same thing with founders, right? You've got to be able to delegate. You can't do this all on your own. You've got to be able to delegate. And can you motivate that team? And can you take them with you and lead this team to the promised land and return an exit or return, an ROI for angel investors? Do you have that extra drive that goes from that 1 to 0 and gives you that infinite advantage? And I look in those founders and like, just say, hey, are you thinking about doing this? Or will I see you here tomorrow morning at this time? Oh no, I can't make it. Or, I'm not saying that's exactly who they are. There could be other things that are ongoing with them and maybe they have a doctor's appointment, whatever. But over time, right, I get to know them really well. I go out and have coffee with them. Before I ever invest, I got to understand that who they are, how they behave, right? People do business with people they trust and like, and it takes time to earn that trust both ways. And it gives me a great picture and an insight into them and the team that he or she possibly has assembled or will be assembling.
So I'd love if you could give an example or two, as specific as you're comfortable, of a founder that you felt like really characterized this, or maybe that at first you were, hesitant about, but then as you went this mile deep, you saw something that most people missed that got you really excited about.
Yeah. I'm not going to name a founder per se, but I'll just kind of describe a founder that I really had a lot of respect, admiration, and, obviously there are a lot of characteristics that you look in a founder we've talked about, but some of the things also that are really important is like vulnerability. coachable,
Mm.
which means that they could be investable, right? I had a founder who was a little bit thought they knew everything, but at the very least said, look, I recognize I don't know everything and I need help. I'm looking for guidance. I believe I'm onto a really great product or a solution, or I'm solving a problem and have a great solution. And I just gave him some suggestions, right? I'm not here to, my journey is different from a founder's journey, but I'm here to say, look, here's some of the things that maybe I would see could be challenges or could be problematic for you, but you need to kind of experience that for yourself and, grow that thick skin and really have some failures as well. Small failures that allow you to adjust and adapt. And so in the case of this founder, he just became ultimately open to feedback, very vulnerable, was a sponge asking questions, and I had a really great respect. He now runs a business and that is doing well. They just became profitable, and I have a significant investment in the company. I believe they're soon to get an LOI to potentially be acquired. And this is 4 years in the making. And so it also makes me motivated to find more investors or people to support him and clients, things like that. When you find that person who is just willing to listen and being, again, very open and coachable and looking at a lens much, wider. And again, when you find someone that is very open, transparent, honest, and they're authentic and genuine, all that, again, plays into that. And then, of course, I leverage my gut. All right. I've been doing this for a long time. So my gut tells me, man, he's doing all the things or she's doing all the right things here. And those founders stand out to me because the product may be inferior, but if they outwork everyone else in the competition, right? You've probably heard this a lot, Andrew. Ideas are a dime a dozen. It's about execution, right? Can you form the right strategic partnership? Can you form the right team? Can you hustle? Do you go the extra mile to make this a go and make this engine hum? Because look, especially if you're in a technology world, especially with AI now today, you may have an inferior product today, but something else now, you may have a superior product with how technology is. So you can make those improvements, but the hard work, that drive, that's something that comes, sometimes in that inner belly area, and so I want to see that. I want to see that fire and that drive. And everyone says they have the fire, but I want to see that extra mile, right? Because I know that I've done that and been successful. I've had my failures and then I've had my successes. And so that really just starts to focus again on the founder.
So how do you balance this with speed of decision making? In my experience, there's this kind of this tension between I have to get in if this is a great opportunity that like there's some pressure to close, to make a commitment, but going a mile deep, that's not something that happens overnight. Like you said, it takes time to build these relationships. Right. Obviously there's strategy, show up, be at the event, get there early, get there late, get that extra time with the founder just to get to know them personally. But any other comments or thoughts on how to balance this tension of speed of decision making, limited capacity, right? Most of us are running businesses or families, can only invest so much time. Like, talk me through how you think about this tension.
Part of what you said, described is why I do it, to get to know them a little bit. Right now, remember, in a lot of ways, us as angel investors, we invest in everything everyone else is. So in a lot of ways, I'm fighting competition amongst my own angel investors. Now I'm that loser too, fighting against all the monks, right? Because look, we teach founders, try and be unique and different. Well, I try to follow what I preach as even an angel investor. What am I going to find in a founder that no one else will know? Right? So I look as, yes, I want my fellow angels to invest with me, right? To help protect and minimize that risk, right? But at the same time, I'm also competing in a way, perhaps. So you talk about speed. I leverage some of my confidants as well. When I get an idea that I think this person is worthy or of moving forward, I'll reach out to some of my fellow NTAN members and ask them, hey, what do you think? Because do I have blind eye, goggles on right now, tunnel vision, and I'm just so in love that I'm missing something? So I can get that validation or second kind of pair of eyes to also look at from their perspective, from a different perspective. just to kind of maybe sometimes validate, not all the times, right? Again, I've been doing this for a while.
Yeah.
But I just try and spend as much time, because if I'm going to ultimately invest in them, I don't want my money to go down the toilet bowl, right? I want to see a 5, 10x, 20x multiple perhaps on my investment in ROI of some sort in the next 3, 5, 7 years. So I spend that extra careful time getting to know them. And I think it is highly recognized by the founders.
Well, it just seems like it's fun. Like every time I see you, it's fun. Like we're all here to have a good time. We want to make some money, but I see just how much you enjoy it as well.
Yeah. And that's probably really where the passion is for me, Andrew, is yes, I'm doing angel investing and I want to make money like everyone else here when we do this stuff. But more than anything, I want to try to help build this community. I thrive on meeting people. I told you I lived all over the world. I enjoyed sales, but my genuine passion is helping others. And I can't help them if I don't know who they are. It's very difficult. Not impossible, but very difficult. Or I can sure go donate money or donate time but getting to know individuals, understanding them, what their challenges are. Look, I don't have all the answers, but I might know that Andrew does this really well that I don't do very well. I'd be glad to introduce them. And you guys saw it today or this week here. I've been introducing people all over. I know there could be some great, meaningful connections, but I thoroughly thrive on meeting people, helping others. And this is why I'm really passionate about helping to build this ecosystem here in Dallas and really put us on the map. We got we got Austin down the street and they're, top 3, top 5, entrepreneurial ecosystems in the country. And we're not there yet, but I'm very hopeful that we can get there. But it takes, a lot of getting out into the community. I do networking events 2 to 3 times a week. And that was part of kind of an agreement that I had with my wife when I moved here from California, to get, I didn't know anyone, and now recently I received the Entrepreneur of the Decade Award. Fortune, the CEO said, "Hey, Ichan," and I was like, "I've been here 4 years. I'm really nominated." And one of my fellow nominees was Trey Bowles, who was a pillar in this community. And I ended up meeting him, and he probably didn't promote it because he probably would have maybe crushed me. But
I'll ask him about that later.
Yeah, but and Trey said this too. They said, "Look, what you've done in the last 3.5 years or so is equal to a 10-year impact."
Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about that. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about the work you've done in particular with the North Texas Angel Network, or NTAN. Tell me a little bit more about the story there. I mean, NTAN has had a remarkable season of growth over this last few years, and for many of our listeners may not be as familiar. So tell me more about that story and what you've done to support that community's growth.
Sure. Yeah, when I first moved here, Andrew, I didn't know anyone, as I just said. I had like one friend maybe from high school that lived here. Other than that, it was just my wife's family that I knew. And so I really had to get to know people. And I really quickly recognized that the entrepreneurial community was fragmented, in my opinion, was a little bit fragmented. And a lot of people didn't have places to go. They didn't know where to look to. So I just started networking, and I was introduced from a buddy of mine here, actually a realtor who was my wife's friend. And he said, "Look, I know a gentleman over at the North Texas Angel Network, and I'll introduce you to him." And this was back in 2022, I think it was, early 2022 maybe. And so I went as a guest, attended a couple NTAN meetings, and I looked at it and I'm like, having come from the Bay Area and participated in some Angel Network, events there, I'm like, I saw 13, 14, maybe 15 people. I'd asked, that director at the time, "How many deals have you done? Any exits? What's the IRR? Tell me a little bit more about companies you're looking for. What's the deal flow like?" It was 4 results across the board. Maybe 15 members, not active. They had not done any deals. The reputation, unfortunately, was a bad one. As I understood, they would go to country clubs to have their meetings, and they would charge founders like $1,000 to apply. And then they would, what kind of perception wise. And I have 2 founders that pitched to NTAN back in the day, and they told me, "Man, these members were just sitting on the high hog off of our applications at the country club and living the good life off of our $1,000 application." And I thought, I'm not joining this. This is not an Angel Network. And so I declined it. And then the gentleman said, "Look, how can we get you on board?" And I said, "The only way I'm joining this is you give me a board seat. That's my only way I'm coming on board. I guess they deliberated and they came back and said, we'll make that happen. We really want to start growing. This was right at the beginning of COVID. So, like everything else kind of had to, it was pretty much dead. So I joined the board, and with a team of Mike Wilkes and Jeff Murphy and Trey and Bill Chen and the other, we started kind of figuring out how to revamp this. And I made it a mission to bring on memberships, but not just memberships, but diverse ones. Earlier, as I described, that 15 member was mostly white men. And I just knew that we needed more diversity. All they were really seeing from a deal flow was like real estate and oil and gas, a few healthcare here and there sprinkled in. But I had coming from tech, want to bring in tech, want to bring in, SaaS, want to bring in all these other things, right? That I knew existed here because I met all these founders. So I took it as a personal mission to grow Lenore Tech's Angel Network, leveraging the team that we had with Jeff Murphy as the executive director, doing the day-to-day stuff. And I was at the time a board member only, not the co-chairman that I am in the role that I reside in now. And so I went out 2-3 times a week recruiting for memberships, who I went to a Dallas meetup, which I'm now the executive advisor for. I met people who were curious about angel investing, who'd never done it. I would invite them, and I would personally go out to coffee with them and tell them about what they can expect, just holding their hand, almost like as a mentor. I also mentor a lot as well. And you meet people that way. And, you meet mentors who are also potential angel investors. I was just all over the place trying to make it a mission to grow this thing. But we need help. And so I tried to, as a leader, try to motivate others to recruit. Then working with Jeff, coming up with ideas about building the membership. I ended up coming up with an idea about building a virtual membership because we're in COVID. And then also at one point we had maybe 7 or 10 members that were virtual, including a brother who is in Japan as a member.
Wow.
Right. We had some people from Germany that expressed interest. I don't think they ever joined, but we've got members. We have some members in Washington State, California, and and other places, but it needed help. And then now we're up to 70 members. We're the institutional investor of the year as of February. You talk about explosive growth. We're 70 members. We went from 15 to 70 in about 2.5 years. We've done maybe $2.5 million in the last 18 months. This past year, this 2025, first calendar 6 months of 2025, we've done about $1 million. We're investing in healthcare, CPG, SaaS, biopharma, medical devices, healthcare. Now we're expanding that reach. We're growing, and we have a much better reputation.
It's funny, Ichan, as you're talking, the things that you're talking about that you all did, I don't hear any, here's the silver bullet, here's the magic sauce, here's what we did to grow this thing.
Grassroots.
Getting out there, hustling, hitting the pavement, talking to people, sitting down over coffee, and just getting after it to build this community, which is now growing and making such an impact here locally.
And next week, we're getting together with the other local angel networks for the first time, I believe, and having a meeting for all their angel investors and our angel investors all get to know each other and also talk about deal flow, talk about trends, talk about the pains and the challenges and also successes, right? Look, we all know when we have fellow angels, and there's a big fear of FOMO here in the angel network world, right? When I hear about CTAN or Houston Angel Network or Alamo Angels, or even our neighboring Cowtown Angels or Thai or Swan or anyone else here locally, when they're doing a deal, we want to know we want to know about it because they went through the due diligence process. And we know that's a long, sometimes arduous and tedious process and maybe painful. But in the end, they went forward with an investment. We do the same thing. So if we can bring on, in a syndicated manner, bring on another angel network, it minimizes or mitigates risk, right? The founder now, he or she and the team can leverage all the different other contacts that we all have, right? Think of it like a tree and there's roots are sprouting everywhere or going everywhere. Each of us have their own networks, right? And so that founding team can leverage that to hopefully grow their revenues, install base, build loyalty. And so it's about just kind of bootstrapping a lot of way, right? We're kind of almost a startup in our own manner and going out in the community. We sponsor Code Launch. We're on podcasts like this and, the other one over there with Isaac Carter. And we're doing events. We're part of the Venture Forum and we're partnered with the Tech Network. And, you just got to get out there and start meeting people. And so we're doing this event next week on Thursday, the 14th, and we're bringing these angel networks together down at Pegasus Park for a happy hour just to get to know. And hopefully that is the start of a new beginning where we're really cohesively gelling, and yeah, so I enjoy it, man. I love it.
Well, certainly grateful for the work you've done and the hustle, right? The years of hustle seem to be proving some value. I'd love to hear any final thoughts for our listeners, takeaways, lessons learned.
Yeah, I think as founders, don't be afraid to ask for help. I really ask for mentorship, ask for advisors, and then you still got to make your decisions on your own. But having a team, I learned very early on that I just can never do this all by myself. Certainly there's things you can do, especially if you're a solopreneur, you got to do a lot of it. But, you can come to these events, meet people, network, go out and network. I would also suggest, as angel investors, get to know really deep these founders, spend the time, go the extra mile to get to know them, because ultimately if you invest in them, you have money in them, and no one likes just giving away money, but go out and network, go out and meet, and, and go shake hands and say hi and be genuine, authentic. I think people really appreciate that. And don't be afraid to ask for help. Even an angel, I could use some help in the due diligence or interviewing this founder or looking at the financials or whatever it might be. But also when I ask for help, it encourages collaboration. And now I get to know someone as well, a little better. Next thing you know, he or she may have a great opportunity from a deal flow perspective, or he or she may know someone that they might refer me to as well. You never know who you're going to meet. And even today now, it's not even who you meet anymore. It's who you know. Who knows you? I mean, you go network all day long. You can shake hands with Mark Cuban, but if you have made an impact on Mark Cuban, he may not know you. But if you make an impact, he may say, I'll have my people call your people, or I really liked what you said and this really resonated with me. I'll make sure that we stay in touch. And so it even goes beyond now of just who you know. It's who knows you.
Yeah.
And that happens because you make an impact, or you are very genuine, authentic, and you're making a meaningful connection.
Wonderful.
And, so anyway, yeah. Well, this is awesome. I had a really great time.
Ichan, this has been a blast. Thank you for making the time to join us amidst your busy schedule. I look forward to our next conversation very much. And if you're listening to this and aren't familiar with the DFW ecosystem, check out Dallas-Fort Worth Startup Week next year. Not sure exactly where it will be, but it will be big, and we look forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. And we're growing our angel network, so you can look us up on Nortex Angel Network, and if you're an accredited investor, we'd love to have you.
Wonderful. Thank you, John.
All right. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Diligent Observer. I'm your host, Andrew, and if you're an angel investor looking for essential angel intel in 5 minutes every week, I think you'd enjoy my newsletter. I send my best stuff, interesting deals,